It's about my grandpa. So I mostly was raised up in my grandparents' house when I was a little kid because my parents were very busy at those time. And my grandpa, so it's like back to 1980s. When I was a little kid, I remember that grandpa used to be a Kung Fu master. That's why I put Bruce Lee's picture there. And he taught himself Kung Fu, and he was very talented on it. So at one point, I remember there were about 200 apprentices who learned Kung Fu from him. And my dad was one of the students. So did my mom. And that's how they met each other. But today, I'm not going to talk about a romantic story. So it's just a sort of a background of my grandpa. He's a very sociable person. He liked doing all the sports. He was very good at Kung Fu, and lots of his students won, lots of real awards, stuff like that. And he moved from a small village to the city where I was raised up. And he's the kind of person who gives ad-lib speech on the stage. It's like hundreds of people in front of people and just speak fluently and tell very interesting stories. And although he had a very bad temper, everybody loves him and respects him a lot. He traveled a lot, and he liked taking me and my cousins to other places just for fun. So we liked him a lot. But all of a sudden, things changed. He suffered a stroke. And what happened to him is he was almost paralyzed on one side of his body. So he barely could move. So what he did every day, just wake up. He can move a little bit, but very, very slowly with a crutch. And he can go to the toilet. He can go to the bathroom by himself. And he can eat by himself. But he just couldn't do any sport. And from then on, he didn't speak much. He didn't talk to people because he just feels so hard to even form a sentence. And so he turned to be very quiet, just as quiet as sometimes I didn't notice he was lying on the bed. And things just happened as it always should be. I finished my high school, I went to college, and I worked in Beijing for a while. But one day, I received a call from my dad. He said, you have to go back. You have to come back soon because your grandpa is in emergency room right now. And I was just like totally blank in my head. And I was just suddenly dropped off all my experiment and I rushed to the air ticket agency where it's in Beijing. And I asked the lady, what's the latest flight? And he said, well, we have one for tonight, and you will be your home before midnight, which is pretty nice. But it's on original price, so you have to pay for the whole thing, which equals about $100. Alternatively, you can take off tomorrow morning. It's the first flight, and it's 70% off, which equals to $30. And I certainly wanted to go back home as soon as possible, but I was hesitant because at that time I make money by my own, and so it's a big change. It's a big difference. So I called my family. All of them were staying in the emergency room. And say, oh, hey, so here is the situation. And my dad said, well, you can decide on your own. but for now, your grandpa looks not so bad. And so I canceled the reservation of the first flight. I made a reservation first, and then I finally bought the morning one, which, you know, I take off the second morning, which is 7:30 a.m. And the next morning, I wake up very early, and I went to the airport. I was standing in front of the gate, you know, just like a gate, and there's no sign that the plane will take off in minutes. And just I heard, you know, the announcement saying this flight will be delayed because it was pouring in my hometown. And for safety purpose, they cannot take off at that point. So I called my dad, and my dad said, well, that's just how things are. And and he told me my grandma was laying on the bed. He couldn't speak anything because there's a huge machine on his head, you know, all connected with the cable stuff like that. And he told my grandpa that my flight was delayed, and they saw a fluctuation on the cardiogram, but he couldn't speak anything. And I was just you know, sort of like turning around and around, you know, in front of the gate, and I was checking my watch like every 10 seconds. You know, I was just totally lost on myself. And it happened. My aunt called me, said, say something. And she put the cell phone beside my grandpa's ear. And I know this is going to be the last chance I say something. So I did. And finally, I got back home, and my grandma told me the night beside he died, she showed my grandpa our family album, and still has very clear mind, since she can still ask for for his glasses to watch the family album. So he review it page by page, and he was moving his hand on the sheet, and trying to make the Chinese character, which is my nickname. So I lost my grandpa forever, even before I realized that he's no less important to me than I'm to him. And I finally lost the chance of saying goodbye in front of him, which may be the last wish of his life. So that's my regret. Sorry? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to and go back to him.